What's going on, everyone? My name is John. I'm a filmmaker slash creator and your host for Make Limited Podcast, where we talk about how to change our circumstances when life happens. In other words, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Today we're talking about a question. What do we do when you see no growth in our lives? What's going on, everyone? Once again, my name is John, your host for Make Limited Podcast, and we're talking today about a question that I think we go through through time, right? We at a certain point in our lives as humans, we set a goal, we try to reach that goal, and then at a certain point, we hit like a stump, we hit something, a dead end, or whatever it is. And we just don't see ourselves growing, and we see ourselves consistently just doing the same thing over and over again. And we're wondering what's happening if we are still consistent, we're still doing what we're doing, why aren't we growing? So I wanted to go over this part, and the question, and repeat the question one more time, is what do we do when you see no growth in your life? And so I wanted to go over 3 key points that I believe are very crucial in this time, and it's to see this period of time in a different perspective. And the reason why I like just saying different perspective is because sometimes it is our view of things that really changes the way we go about them every day. And that's what I want to give you today, a different perspective, because I want you to see it through a different pair of eyes. Maybe at this moment you're not seeing clearly. Maybe at this moment there's a lot of blurriness going on. There's a lot of white noise and too much going on. And sometimes sitting still and seeing a different perspective just does it to really push us to move forward. So the 3 points that we're going to go on to today are really simple to understand, really simple to really apply to our lives. And I want to share with you these points before we go into them. So you can think about it as 1, 2, 3 or ABC, whichever just you receive. I received it as 1, 2, 3, really easy. So number 1 is learn, number 2 is keep, and number 3 is get. So those are the 3 things that we're going to be talking today about. So we're going to go into point number 1, and stay tuned because it's going to be amazing. So let's go into point number 1, that is learn. Point number 1 is learn. This is something that I believe in this time of period, the question of what do we do when you see no growth in your life. And this can be in any situation. I mean, you could be reaching a goal, you can be at a point where you're trying to grow a business and you're not growing for some reason. And this can be like in your school, maybe you're in sports, maybe you're in some competition, some sort of competition, and you're seeing yourself at a point where you're not growing. Musician, maybe I can relate to that. When I'm playing the guitar, there is a point that I just felt like I was just repeating the same notes over and over again. But when I realized these 3 points in this process, I realized that I could grow substantially, even more than I could ever think or imagine. And the reason why is because these are 3 practical things that I believe sometimes we miss, only because we're too focused on just trying to get something new out of what we've been doing over and over again. And so this is why I want to talk about this, and learn is super, super important. So for learn, I want to talk about learn all you can in that time. That's what I want to go into in point number 1, as we learn all you can in that time. And this is something I believe that there are areas in our lives where, take for example the guitar again, right? This is something that I can relate to. I felt that I was playing the same thing, right? And I was thinking to myself, well, how can I grow, right? I've been, listening to this type of music. I've been wanting to play this type of music. I've been wanting to, just, get myself to a point that the music that I was playing was so awesome, the rhythm, everything. And then I realized I needed to go a little bit different than what I just saw in front of me. So what does that mean? I went into a different genre. I started listening to different music. I started listening to different beats. I started listening to just different guitar noises and just sat there and learn. It wasn't so much about playing. It wasn't so much about putting into practice. Because practice is good, don't get me wrong. But at the time that you are at a point where you don't feel growth, there is a lesson that you need to learn before you move forward. Think about it as a game. You have to pass a certain level, you have to reach certain goals, and then you reach the next level. And I think it's very practical in the same way when it comes to learning and growing in a position that we are stunt of growth. And learn from all you can. What are some areas? Get a different perspective within your field. Maybe you need to go, take for example music. You're playing guitar and you keep playing, let's say, blues, and maybe you need to go into jazz. Maybe you need to go into a little pop, maybe a little hip hop here and there, and you start realizing different sounds. You start realizing different tones of different music, and you start applying that to your life. And out of a sudden, you start getting new ideas. Out of a sudden, you start getting new rhythms and tempos, and you start realizing that there's just not one way to do things. There are many ways. And so sometimes in our life we have to learn from a different perspective. We have to see it from a different area than just what we see every day, because it gets to the point that yes, things come repetitive, and there's nothing wrong with things being repetitive. I think that's a very healthy thing to do, but also it's very healthy to see a different point of view, and because you broaden your thinking, you broaden your intelligence, your mind, your muscle memory, and you get to explore things in your life that you would have never seen if it hadn't been through a different point of view. And that's the beautiful thing about learning. You get to see, you get to just sit there and learn. And that's the process, because you got to use all your senses, your hearing, your seeing, your smelling, and it's going to take you to a different dimension than what you thought you could be in. And that's the beautiful thing about when you are in a place of stunt growth and you're trying to just keep going and keep going, and you're trying to practice and you're trying to do the same thing over and over again and trying to come up with something. And sometimes you need to pause and just look around of what's different. What is out there? What is something that maybe you haven't heard, maybe you haven't seen, maybe you're not doing. And so that is super important to see it from different perspectives. So point number one is learn. Make sure you have that. Make sure that when things in life are happening and you just see to be staying in the same position, take a time to learn all you can in that time, because it's going to benefit you in the next run that you're going to. That is crucial. And I don't think we think about it in that sense, right? We just want to move forward and move forward, but you never know if in that time that you are, on pause, you need to learn something so that when you go into the next level, you're prepared for that next level. And that's why learn is the first point that I point on here, because I want you to really take this into heart, that if you are stunt growth, you need to learn something in that level. Number 2 is keep. And here we go. Here is your title, or your main thing that you want to do when it's keep. For number 2, keep moving. That is the best process. Okay, keep watering your seed even though you don't see it grow. Now I have 2 stories for you. I have the seed story, and I have this story that I keep for the longest time, and it's something that just for me is super crucial for myself in my own life. So I want to share this with you because I keep this story closely with me every time that I am in a place of stunt growth, because I know there is something that I need to learn in this position. So keep moving. So this is a story of two men that are in the wilderness and they're lost and they're in a boat, right? And one man says, "Let's pray that God will save us, and He'll send somebody to rescue us, right?" And then the other man that was there, he told the man, he was like, "Okay, how about let's pray and let's move forward as we are praying for a rescue." And the point of this story was, at a time where you feel that you are stunned of growth, and when you are told to, like, be, keep going, and stay positive and stay this, the process is not just to be positive, right? The process is not just to keep on going. The process is, you got to keep two things in mind. Number one is your mind. You got to keep your mind focused on the things that you want, right? And number two is, you got to keep moving towards that direction, even if it feels that you're not growing. I've been in places where, I literally take 18 hours of my day, and I'm working 18 hours of my day from like 5 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And I'm literally working, and I feel like I just moved 1 inch. And I'm like, what is going on, right? And the thing is that you have to have two and two. You can't just have one. You can't just move and hope that something happens, right? You gotta have the both together. You gotta have the mind, the mindset, the keeping focus, the positivity, the keep on going, and you gotta have yourself moving forward. Because at any time when you distract your thinking into thinking something that may be negative or maybe just knocks you down, you will get discouraged. You will get to a point of the percentage of you quitting is going to be higher. And that's why I say keep moving. And then here it comes from the story for the water, for the seed. This is a beautiful story. So a man plants a seed, right? And there's two farmers, and one goes out there and plants a seed, and it hasn't rained for a very long time. And one says, "I'm going to prepare my field and do everything I need to do for the rain to come." But there is no forecast of rain coming. The other farmer says, "I'm going to wait for the rain because I don't think it's going to rain, and I don't want to do all this stuff and waste a bunch of things." When the rain came, only one of them was prepared. And I'm pretty sure you can guess which one it was. The person who actually went out there and, did the whole, excavation, planted seeds, and just did everything that they needed to do as a farmer. And they had a prosperous growth, while the other ones didn't have a prosperous growth. So the key point to this story again comes down to the two parts of the keep moving and keep yourself at a mindset of where you want to be. And why this is important, because as you see as the farmer, as you see the two mentalities of these these four men, two of them thought about the same thing, while the other two thought about just sitting down there and just, they both were considered farmers. They both had land. They both knew about the weather. They had every information in front of them, but only two of them actually decided to go out there and really, push and really have faith. Faith is believing, and just believing that they're doing their job and that the rain will come. And that is the process that I want to talk about, because so many times I believe it's not worth, right? Our mindset comes to it's not worth doing something if we believe we're going to get nothing out of it, right? You go somewhere, you spend time there, and you seem like you're not getting anything out of it. I've been in many situations where I've spent 5 to 4 years in a position of no pay, of no glory, no praise, and I am there faithfully, giving my time of my days for 5 years, 4 years, and it was a disaster, right? I didn't get anything out of it. It actually went south, and it was a disaster. Things just went upside down from where I thought leadership was amazing, and it just came down to be leadership was corrupted. And it was so heartbreaking to me, but the process that I went through that thing, at the very end, what I recognized, because again, we come to this, threshold of, was it worth it? Did I just waste my time? And I was on the side of wasting my time. Why? Because I thought that I had just wasted 5 to 4 years of being there. But actually, when I came to the realization of things, I learned. I learned how to be a leader. I learned how not to be a leader. I learned and developed my music talent. I learned to develop my video talents. I learned to develop my advertising marketing talents. I learned how to speak to people of all ages. I've learned how to start, communities, groups, and learn how to communicate with them from a position to being in the same area. And I learned how to really get across with people and talking to them and listening to them mostly. So that I could really get to know who they were. And one of the processes sometimes in our lives, and I've seen it in movies so many times, like the best examples, where you're so much caught up into your work that you would rather pay attention to your work than pay attention to the people. And sometimes in our jobs, we need to pay attention to the people so that we could hear and do a better job at our work. And I think this is very crucial when it comes to keep moving, because as those years pass, I kept moving through it. It felt inconsistent. It felt like it wasn't growing. And when it all ended, I was prepared for my next level. I was prepared. I was devastated. I was hurt, but I was prepared. Surprisingly, as all those things happened, I was prepared. I was prepared to move forward in my life. I was prepared to grow. And it was about that time. One of the things that I say, I like to say a lot in my daily living to myself, is if you don't change, change will change you. And that is something that I like to repeat over and over to myself, because it's something that keeps me focused on my goals and dreams and visions that I have for myself. If I don't change, what I have left there to, let's say, take for example a car. If you don't maintain your car, if you don't upgrade your car, if you don't keep changing the oil, that car is going to eventually break down on you. And so that is what I'm referring to. If you don't change, change will change you. And so that is number 2 on keep moving. Number 3, we are at number 3, and that is get. Okay, and this is what we have for get. Get yourself ready for the next step. And we talked a little bit about this in Keep Moving, but get yourself ready for the next step. This is something I believe that it's a foreshadow of what we believe is going to be in the future, right? So whatever we're doing now is what we're going to be doing later on in the future, right? So if you are Let's just do, black and white. If you're doing nothing, you're going to be doing nothing in the future. If you are doing something, you're going to be doing something in the future, right? Black and white. And, one of the things that I like to say to a lot of people that it's a little on the gray side, because I believe that it goes both ways, right? And just because you are in a certain area of, let's say, you are financially broke, you are, devastated, you just had a heartbreak, something life changing happened to you. Just because you are in that situation doesn't mean that you're going to be there forever. It's a season. It's a season where you are at. If you are broken life, if you see yourself not, anywhere in your life, you are there for a season. If you don't have a job, you are only there for a season. If you are bank broke, you are only there for a season. And I put a video of this on the first podcast of the year, I believe, of 2021. You can go check it out. And I put a video of Dr. Miles Monroe when he's talking about this and giving a speech on this beautiful topic of, if you are in a certain area, you're only there for a season. And that's what I mean. We're getting yourself ready for the next step. Knowing that if you are in a certain place, you're not there for long. You are getting yourself ready for the next step. And how do you do those things? Well, that's preparation. Right? I say be prepared for the unprepared, for the prepared. And this is what I mean with that. You prepare yourself for what you need to do. Right? You set your goals. You see what you have to do. And then you do it. Right? And also you keep in mind the things that can come at you from anywhere. And one of the things that I see this at and that I apply to my life is, I was actually seeing a master class with Usher, who was teaching about the entertainment industry and how to be a performer. And he talks about how during his practices, when they were getting ready for the concerts, he would actually have a friend of his come in disturbing the practice. So the friend could pretend to be drunk. The friend can pretend to be like somebody random who just was making a lot of ruckus or just disturbing their whole practice. Why? Because in a concert, you never know what's going to happen, right? You have your things planned, you have everything set, you practice, you do everything you need to do, but sometimes you're not ready for the things that you weren't prepared for, right? And so practicing those things can really be helpful in your life. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a special person of mine, and we were talking about the formalities of introducing yourself when you meet somebody, whether it be a business or a person. And the reason why we're talking about this is because I was telling the individual that I was having, I had a person from a certain company come to ring the bell in my house and was just asking to go through my backyard and do something for himself, for the neighbor. And I was like, no, right? Because first of all, they didn't introduce who they were. They didn't introduce who they were coming with. They didn't introduce what exactly they were doing. They was just like, hey, can I do this? And that's it. And, I think, and so many times, formality is super important when it comes into introduction of yourself, whether it be a business or just plain out trying to really get a communication across with anybody. Formalities are super important because I believe even in the olden days they did this. When they introduced themselves into a certain person, they would also introduce who they were, their position, who they were coming from, and what was that they were asking. It was very simple, but it was respect for the person, their property, and who they were, whether they be a person of class or a person who was just in poverty. And this was a custom. And I believe when we're getting ready for our next step, there are certain things in our lives that we need to remember, and that is the respect that we have for ourselves and the respect that we have for others. That is something that we should always be ready for, because you never know what can happen. And back to the story of Usher, he would do that to his band because they needed to practice in case something happened in the concert, whether it be, a individual from the audience would just jump on stage and run everywhere. What they need to know what to do, right? In case there was a disturbance, if something horrible happened, they need to know what to do. And so this was a constant thing that he would do, surprise his band every single time with things like this, so that they could know how to be uncomfortable when the time came to be comfortable, right? And this was something that I say, and I really connected with get yourself ready for the next step, is get yourself ready for things that are going to be uncomfortable, and get yourself ready for what you need to get ready for. Practice the things that you need to practice, that you're going to be doing, and later on. Because the more you grow, again, the little bite sizes that you have, like I like to say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So the little bites that you take in your life to reach the goal that you want to reach, it's going to have some surprises along the line. So challenging yourself, practicing the things that you feel uncomfortable with are very crucial. So how can you do this? Well, you can ask a friend. You can tell them, surprise me, do something that I would, that is uncomfortable, right? And practice those things so that you can know how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think that's super important when it comes to any stage of our lives, when we're doing anything and we are at that stunt of growth, because everything comes down to what are we going to do in that time? What are we doing? And that's what's important. And these are three things that I believe if you do in your life in that time that you're a stunt of growth, you will be ready for when it comes time for you to move forward. Because there is always a time. Remember, I said there's always a season for where you're at. So you got to be ready for the next season that you're going into. And that's why get on point number 3 is super important. Alright, everyone, so you have reached the conclusion of our podcast for today, and I'm super excited that you made it through, right? We learned today about a very important lesson, a very important question that I believe we all go through, and that is, what do we do when we see, or when you see, or where I see no growth in our lives? And we learned 3 key points, and that is learn, keep, and get. And we learned that learn all you can in that time. See a different perspective so that you can learn from a different area. Maybe because you're so focused on what you're doing, you need to see it from a different area. Number 2 is keep moving. Keep watering your seed even though you don't see it grow. And this is super important because when you put a seed on the ground, the process of it to grow is a while. So you're not going to stop watering it because you don't see the seed grow in one day, right? You keep watering, you keep going, you keep moving, and every single day you give it that water and that sunlight that it needs, and sooner or later you're going to see that growth coming. And so we go into point number 3, when get yourself ready for the next step. For example, again, we take the plant. As it grows, it just doesn't stop there, right? We just don't want to see the roots come out, or the plant come out, the seed go into a plant and grow and give us fruit, right? We want to know what we're going to do with those fruits, right? What are we going to do? We're going to eat them, we're going to cut them, we're going to put into our salads, whatever food we're doing. And that's just an example of how to get ready for our next step, right? We need to be ready for what we're going to want to do, right? Bite sizes. How do we eat an elephant? A bite at a time. So another thing when you're getting yourself ready is be ready for the uncomfortable. Practice the uncomfortable so that you can be comfortable in that time when it happens. And this is all in due with what you do when there's no growth in that time of period of your life. Know that it's a season. Know that in that time, if you learn, if you keep, and if you get, you're going to be ready when that time comes for you to grow. And so this is what my main point was for today. This was my focus. I wanted you to be at a certain area that even though you don't really feel that it's just not happening and you want to quit, I'm telling you, apply these things in your life and you will see that these principles will take you to your next level and you're going to be ready. And every level that you you pass, take this to your next level and share this with other people, because it's important, and I believe this is something we all need to hear and learn. So I'm so glad that you were here today with me. Again, I'm your host John from Make Limited Podcast, and thank you so much for being here. I just can't tell you how much I am thankful for being here wherever you're hearing from all over the world. We thank you for listening to our podcast, and I hope that you are encouraged and motivated today to keep going in your life. So guys, we'll see you next time. Have a great day.